All right, hello everyone, hope you're doing well. In this video, I want to talk about a topic that I think is extremely important, often overlooked or somewhat misunderstood, but it's something that I look at with every single client, and that's the emergency fund. Okay, so this is something that I'm going to go over in this video, what it is, how you're supposed to think about an emergency fund, what it actually is, what it's not meant to be used for, or how to be thinking about it, and how actually having too much cash can actually be working against you. So an emergency fund at its very basic level, the way I think about it, the way I explain it to people is if my income went to zero tomorrow, right? Maybe I lost my job, and if I'm not, in a relationship or have a partner or a spouse that's working, and they don't have any income, or I'm single. If my income went to zero, do I have enough money in a designated account that would allow me to pay my bills and survive over an extended period of time until that income picks up? Or if I'm retired, Social Security goes dry, or your pension runs out, or something happens, do you have enough money set aside? That's really how I look at it. Now, it can be used for real emergencies where you maybe just don't have enough cash on hand. You have a large medical bill, transmission in your car goes out, something like that, and you really do need those funds. We can use it for that as well, but at its core, how I really think about a designated emergency fund is, again, I have no income coming in. So that's how I look at it. So how much should I have in that? How much should I have in the emergency fund? Well, as a general rule, kind of, let's just say industry standard, what we would suggest is if you are single, no other income except for yours, right? So you have no other income coming in, you generally want to have 6 months of reserves set aside in that emergency fund. If you're married and one spouse is working and the other spouse is not working, typically same thing, you want to have about 6 months reserves set aside for that. If you're married and you're both working and your income is very different, let's say wife makes a lot more than the husband, but you're both kind of working, maybe husband's working part-time, then I still want to see about 6 months of reserves. If both spouses are working and they're making about the same income, we generally say, let's say somewhere in between 3 to 6 months of reserve set aside. So a lot of info right there, but most people are probably going to fall around that 6 months. That's kind of where I like to see most people have enough cash. So what is the money for? How do we figure that out, that amount out? Well, the first thing that I want to see is I want you to make a list of all your fixed expenses, right? Fixed expenses being your mortgage, your rent, your car payment, your car insurance, health insurance, utilities. There's certain things that really, the amount may change a little bit, but you're going to have to pay those every single month, okay? And so I just want you to make a list. Those are what we would call fixed. Now, the variable or the expenses that may change from time to time, but you still have to have, are going to be food, maybe clothing, maybe certain things that that you're going to have to get, but they're not the same, right? Maybe one month you spend $2,000 on groceries and eating out. Maybe the next you spend $1,000, and the next $3,000, whatever it is. So come up and be conservative about it, but don't. I see a lot of times people their normal grocery bill is $2,000 a month, but for their emergency fund, they put $6,000, per month. I think that's a little extreme, but you want to figure those out. And then the third column are going to be, more of those expenses that you may have every single month, but in a pinch, if your income went down, you're probably okay to close, to put a pause on them. Think about things like your streaming services, your Hulu, your YouTube TV, things like that, where, maybe even, certain memberships that you have. Doesn't mean you can't bring them back, but when you're not working and you're trying to really, kind of tighten the belt, those are other things that you may, want to remove or keep them, right? Your gym membership, probably want to keep your gym membership because, going to the gym in times of when things are difficult, it's kind of good for you. So but you kind of strike that balance. Then what I want you to do, come up with that number. If it's $10,000 a month is what you need just to cover your day-to-day living expenses, this is not going on vacation or anything like that, then I want you to multiply that by the amount you need to have. So keeping the math simple, if we need 6 months, 6 times 10,000 is $60,000. So that's our target amount. We know that we need to get $60,000 saved in a bank account to meet those living expenses. Now, one of the things I see a lot of people do, and this is a big piece of it, is they drastically overestimate how much they need. Okay, well, first of all, a lot of people don't know, right? So this is a very difficult exercise for people to do. I would say 99% of my clients, maybe a little less, when I ask them what's your monthly expenses, they really don't know. They think they have an idea, but often when we finally get them to put pen to paper or do their Excel spreadsheet or whatever, use some software, they way either overestimate or underestimate how much money they spend on a monthly basis. So this is a really good exercise. It's painful for a lot of people, but you gotta start there. But what I see a lot of people do, either one, they don't have any emergency fund, or they're using their day-to-day checking account as kind of that emergency fund, but this is not it, right? This is not where you're paying your day-to-day bills. This is a separate account. I'm gonna talk about what my suggestions are for it. But a lot of people either don't have an emergency fund in place at all, or they have way too much cash in there, right? Their monthly, their goal is 60,000, but they got 200 grand in there. And when you dig in, I'm like, why do you have so much? And it makes them feel good to have that amount of cash. And the problem with that is that money is not really working for them. Now, what I recommend for this account is don't use a general checking account. Use a high yield savings account, and there's dozens of them out there. What I personally like to tell people is have a little friction of where that account is. If you do your normal banking at, pick your bank, Bank of America, and they've got a high yield savings account, maybe don't have that emergency fund at Bank of America, because it gives you a little bit easier access where you can just go online and transfer funds, or use it for stuff that's not really meant to be an emergency. I'd rather you use an online bank or something like that, where you don't have a debit card for it necessarily, or a checking account for it. It's there, you can access it, but it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, because that's really what it's meant to be used for. So it's, depending on interest rates, you've got a high yield savings account that's earning, 3, 4, 5%, depending, or lower, depending on where we're at in the cycle. But it's definitely not getting market-based returns. And so I tell people, look, we gotta get your mind, we gotta help you think about what this money is for. And if you really think about it, 6 months is a pretty long time to have money, to not be getting any sort of income, right? And chances are, push come to shove, if you lost your job, you're probably gonna find one in the next couple of months. It's probably not gonna take you a full year. Now I get that could possibly be the case, but most people are gonna find something, or in the meantime, they're gonna get, maybe a part-time or not their ideal job, but they'll have a little bit of income coming in. But people, I think, just feel a lot better to have that amount, a large amount. So I want you to figure out what that amount is. And if you really want to be extra cautious, give yourself an extra month, okay? I'm okay with that if it will give you some peace of mind. But if you've got a year, 2 years, 3 years worth of money in there, I think it's working to your detriment. I'd rather see you put that somewhere, getting higher returns, and just kind of mentally thinking about that, what this money is for, right? Again, think mortgage, insurance, utilities, things like that. And that will help you, I think, have some peace of mind. Then in your normal checking account, your day-to-day expenses, maybe have 3 months expenses in there. So think that account, that checking account where you're paying food and different stuff, have a little bit of extra cash in there. You don't want to be necessarily going week by week. But you can have a little bit of cash in there. And between those two accounts, you're going to be in a very, very good situation. And for newer investors or younger people who are just kind of starting out, I like to see them start here before they even come to me and ask about investments, because life happens, stuff happens. There will be an emergency. I can't tell you when, but I promise there will be something that will happen in your life where you're going to need some cash. And if we've been putting all your money into a brokerage account or an investment account, an IRA or 401k, you may not be able to access that money without paying a penalty and then paying the taxes on it. Or we may be in a down cycle and you've got to sell at a loss to access some of those funds. So I really like to see people in their beginning stages start with this. Get this set up just as quickly as you can. Put all that money until you get your account set up and fully funded, and then let's move on to something else. And then maybe now we're talking about IRAs or 401ks or a brokerage account or something like that. So I want you to have some clarity around this. Really get your mind around what the emergency fund is for, and get some peace of mind about that. Of like, this is what this money is for, and now you can start deploying capital in other areas once you've got this set up. So that's kind of where your financial plan stops being reactive and you start being more intentional about what you're doing. So anyways, good luck on your financial journey. If we can be of any assistance, love to help. Talk to y'all soon.